What's up, everybody? Back with another Survivor video, this time week 15. I appreciate your patience for those looking for this video on Tuesday night or just Tuesday and Wednesday in the day. I think that Wednesdays will be the new day for Survivor because this gives me a little more time to process what happened in the previous week and give you guys a little bit more educated analysis for your Survivor picks as the weeks get slimmer and start to dwindle. These analysis become and your picks become more and more important. So I thought it'd be better to get a little bit more data, kind of bulk up this analysis. I really appreciate you guys in the comment section. One, praising me, that's always nice, but also interacting with me, asking me questions about your current situation and just allowing me to try to help out the best way I can. So it means the world to me. It also means the world when you guys like the video. It's such a great sign of encouragement. It takes very little effort on your part. Subscribing, if you use this content week in and week out, also means a lot too. So keep that up, and I really appreciate it. As always, taking a look at 9 games this week. You see a lot of usual suspects here that may not even be available to you anymore, like the Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, a lot of teams that are popularly picked, but also some teams that haven't been picked too much, like the Commanders or the Saints. So we'll talk about those teams just mentioned and more coming up. And then even though I said it, the season is dwindling, only 4 weeks left, you still are going to want to look at your schedule preview and try to plan ahead if that is something you think you should be doing. For teams like the Chiefs and the Niners, like these are games for them. I think that they will be the heavy favorite week in and week out for the rest of the season. That does not mean I think each team is going to run the table, but I think there's certainly viable options any given week for a Survivor pick. So those are the kind of things you want to keep in mind when you're taking a look at the schedule. And we'll go back to that later, as always, when we talk about the value pick. But we will start with the proceed with cautions as we do after the potential picks preview. And I got 3 teams that I'm worried about. The last of which being the one I'm worried about the most. But we'll start with the Commanders at home against the Giants here. If you recall, just 2 weeks earlier, these two teams played, ending in a tie when they played in the Meadowlands. Let that just be a record that, the Giants and the Commanders are a pretty evenly matched team and will certainly, be a close game to go toe-to-toe. So for that reason, that's one reason that I think that this spread of -4.5 is misleading. Also, if you remember that game and watched it, that the Giants were up 20-13, I believe it was, with less than 2 minutes left in the game when they let up, another Taylor Heineke fourth quarter comeback. The Giants should have won that game. They were outplaying the Commanders for 58 of the minutes played, and they collapsed. If they don't do that, then I think the spread's a lot different. And so this Giants team is capable of hanging and beating the Commanders. So it definitely scares me. The Commanders being at home certainly helps, but as you know, any Survivor matchup, you're going to want to avoid these divisional games when possible, especially when the spread is this low. I do think the Commanders are due for a win this game. They're coming off a bye week. They're still fighting for a playoff spot, as the Giants are too. But when push comes to shove in 2 really close teams, I'm going to take the home team. But that's not a situation you want to be in when you're picking a Survivor pick, a coin flip game, but I just had to go with the home team. There are certainly better options out there, but I recognize that this late in the season, there might not be a ton of options, and this one might be the best, but it's something I just think you should think twice before picking and diving right into. Another one in the same boat, Saints, same spread, 4.5 points. They're at home against the divisional opponent. Similar situation. And what really helps the Saints in this matchup is they're facing the first career start and rookie 3rd-round pick quarterback Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati. So you would think that, facing a rookie quarterback in his first start at home, really lends itself well to the Saints. And it does, but even so, the spread is still only 4.5, meaning that on a neutral field, they'd only be 1.5-point favorites, and they match up pretty closely with this Falcons team. Obviously, I'm concerned about this game because of the fact it's a divisional matchup, but 2, I'm not writing off Desmond Ridder just because it's his first start ever. So often you see these rookie quarterbacks come in and with a spark right away that sometimes lasts and sometimes fizzles, but nonetheless, they start out with a spark. And a lot of reason that is they have a fire under their butt to go out and perform right away. But more importantly, these other teams can't game plan against them. They have no film on these guys. They don't know what their strength is or what their weakness is. And that really lends itself to the Falcons here in terms of the chess match. They have all the film in the world on Andy Dalton and this Saints team, but the Saints have no way to game plan against Ritter besides his college film, but they don't know how he fits in this Falcons offense. So that's something that concerns me. Again, like the Commanders, I think being the home team here in this divisional matchup, especially against a rookie quarterback, lends itself to the Saints. And I do think the Saints win this one. Again, these two teams are also fighting for a playoff spot with how lackluster this NFC South division is. So tight game, give me the home team, especially against a rookie quarterback. But that doesn't mean this game won't be close. And the Falcons still have a chance to win. And it's something that scares me as well. But it does not scare me as much as this game for the Cowboys facing the Jaguars on the road. And the reason being is not because the Cowboys looked terrible against the Texans and should have lost last week. And it's not because the Jaguars looked amazing against the Titans on the road last week and blew them out. The real reason I'm concerned about this game is the spread of 4.5 doesn't make much sense to me. As you know, if you've watched these videos or my other weekly picks videos, I am in love with this Cowboys team, and I think they're absolutely incredible. I think they are leagues better than the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I don't think they should be favored by 4.5. I think they should be favored by a lot more. But so often in the NFL, what I think and what the spread lines up with isn't always the same. And the situation where you should be most concerned in any given football game is when a line does not make sense to you. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, I don't understand why the Jaguars are, this close of underdogs. I don't know why the Cowboys aren't favored by more. And in fact, this line is at 4.5. It's moving closer and closer towards -4, meaning the public is betting more and more on the Jaguars. None of that seems to make sense to me. And that is just ringing red alarms in my head saying, when things don't make sense, you stay away from the NFL because there's always something that these deep numbers know that no human can ever analyze. These computers and machines figure out that this is going to be a closer game than everyone else expects. And that concerns me more than anything. There's nothing special about this Jaguars team. They are subpar and below average in just about every defensive category. Their offense isn't anything special, but their real strength is, their only strength on this team is their pass blocking is top 5 in the league. So that'll help against a really formidable and one of the best pass rushing teams in the league in the Dallas Cowboys. But that alone doesn't mean that this game is going to be close just because they won't be getting sacked every play. Their offense is 12th in the league, but they're facing a top 5 defense, the Cowboys. Cowboys are seeming to click besides last week on offense when they're playing a bottom 20 or bottom 10 D in the league here for the Jaguars. None of it seems to make sense to me. And that concerns me more than anything. And it should concern you. And the more you watch football and the more you pay attention to the lines, you'll know that and start to recognize that when things start to make sense, you're the person making the judgment call is usually wrong. So something to really be aware of, I believe. Taking a look at this best pick, moving out from the proceed of caution. The best pick, as it normally is the team favored by the most points, and that is the Chiefs at the Texans. The Chiefs, in all intents and purposes, lost that game in the second half against the Broncos. At least that's what's going through the players' minds. They let up a very large lead at home. Patrick Mahomes threw 3 interceptions. They're not happy with the way they played against the Broncos, not by a long shot. So they're coming off this like a loss almost. They have a lot of things to improve upon because these guys got Super Bowl in their sights. They are the number 2 seed right now, fighting for the number 1 seed against the Bills. They have the same record, although the Bills have the tiebreaker after beating the Chiefs earlier this season. So essentially, the Chiefs are 1 game back in the Bills, and they cannot afford to lose games like this against the Texans, who are the worst team in the league, at least by their record, if they want to be that 1 seed and get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So basically every game right now for the Chiefs is a must win in their eyes, and they're certainly not going to drop games to the Texans. I think they're going to come out of this game with a fire under their butt with the way they play that second half and really try to right the ship and fix those mistakes that surfaced against the Broncos. And it will not be hard to fix those mistakes against a Texans team who have the second worst defense behind the Bears in the league. Going from a Broncos defense, who is the number 1 team in coverage and one of the top 5 defenses in the league, against the bottom 2 defense in the league, is going to really make this Chiefs team shine. And I see very little chance of them losing this game. but there's also very little chance you still have the Chiefs left in survivors. So hopefully that helps, but this would be a good time to pick them, honestly. I do think you can pick them, a lot of time for the rest of the season. But I think this might be the best one. Looking at value, and just looking at the schedule, like I talked about the Chiefs, I don't think any of these games for the Chiefs, at least, are favored by 2 touchdowns or more. They're playing the worst team in the league. If you still have them now, it's probably the time to take them. But looking at the value for the other teams, the Bills against Miami, definitely not value against the divisional opponent that has beaten you already, but against Chicago, for sure. The Cowboys here, again, I think it's a trap game. The Jaguars, I don't love by the line, but this might be the time to take them if you still have them, unless you're thinking about Washington on the road in the final week. At that point, the Cowboys might not have anything to play for at that point in week 18. They might have already locked up the number 1 wildcard spot if the Eagles went out and they remain 2 games back. So could be a time to pick the Cowboys this week if you're willing to roll the dice, but you got to remember week 18, not every team is still going to play for. So I'm going to keep in mind there. Minnesota here, I like them against the matchup against the Giants, quite honestly, at home, but certainly not the strongest survivor pick. And then against the Bears, if these guys are still competing, I think the Vikings can handle the Bears pretty easily. I'm going to skip around these teams and just kind of get to the nitty gritty here. The 3 teams left that have no picks here are the Saints, the Commanders, and the Packers. I already talked about the Saints and the Commanders. These guys are at home facing divisional opponents. Not much value there, and they're only favored by 4.5. Packers, on the other hand, are at home against Baker Mayfield, who's been bouncing around teams and has the lowest QBR of any quarterback this season. And they're at home, and they're coming off a bye, and they're being favored by 7 points. You're definitely not going to pick the Packers against Miami on the road. You're not going to pick them against Minnesota at home because Minnesota whooped them earlier this year and is liable to do so again. And Detroit, who has played the Packers and very well this year, and Detroit, who's looking really good lately, probably not the spot you want them either. So for me, the best pick is certainly the best value is certainly the Packers here. I personally probably wouldn't be picking the Packers for the rest of the season. This is certainly the highest the Packers will be favored for the rest of the season. And I really like this matchup coming off a bye against the Rams. The Rams are getting a long week after Thursday Night Football, but they have a lot of flaws on offense that I don't think they're going to be able to mask against this Packers team. And I think the Packers defense will handle the Rams offense easily. Now, the Rams have a great defense, and they're probably going to get the Packers fits, but you give Aaron Rodgers the ball in his hands enough times, I think he's going to make enough plays. The Packers, worth noting, if they win out, they are in the playoffs. This is one of those Aaron Rodgers run the table moments where it doesn't matter what odds he has, he's going to make it happen. I think just with how young his receivers is, any extra week and any bye week is super valuable. I think it's a great spot for the Packers to want to get a nice win against a low opponent, but also, kind of have a springboard for the rest of the season to maybe make a playoff berth run. Talking about some good picks, I really don't need to talk. I think everyone here knows these are good picks. Eagles at the Bears. Eagles are one of the best teams in football. The Bears are one of the worst. What more do you really need to know? This Eagles defense is going to smother the Bears offense and vice versa. I don't think this Bears defense has any chance of stopping this Eagles offense that's looking unstoppable. I think -9 is a joke, honestly, but that's one of those things that doesn't really make sense to me, so maybe stay away from it from a betting purpose, but Eagles are going to win this game. No doubt about it in my mind. Bills I'm a little bit more worried about, but still not too concerned. The reason being, one, they got a lot to play for in terms of this number 1 seed. Dolphins have a lot to play for too. But I just think for me, I thought this game would have been much more favored to the Dolphins side. I would have put this line like -4.5, -5. Seeing -7.5 means that Vegas and the odds makers have a lot of faith in the Bills to win this game. And maybe a big part of that is this Dolphins team and Tua. They don't play in weather like in Buffalo. They're not ready for what's going to come in the elements. I just think this is a good matchup for the Bills at home to beat up on the Dolphins that, you saw a lot of flaws there against the Chargers there in Sunday Night Football. And I think the Bills would continue to expose those flaws. And there are 2 things I haven't talked about. These games I'm not too worried about. And I'll tell you why. You might have thought because they're the bottom of the list, they're perceived a caution, but again, I'm not concerned with them as much as I am the other games that I've highlighted here in yellow. Vikings here, if you watch my betting videos, the Vikings cover -4 is the lock of the week. I really like their matchup here with the Colts. Vikings have I want to say, second best, certainly top 5 best run defense in football. And the only thing the Colts do well in offense is run the ball. And if the Vikings can limit Jonathan Taylor in this Colts run game, like they've been doing to most teams all season, the Colts are going to be a really tough situation trying to pass the ball with their really subpar offensive line against this good pass rush for the Vikings, led by Zadarius Smith, who's got double-digit sacks this year. I think the Vikings here mash up with the Colts really well. I don't think the Vikings are as good as their record shows, and I think the Colts are better than their record shows, but the Vikings are in a great matchup here with the Colts. The one real flaw I see in this Vikings team, the one real flaw the data sees with this Vikings team is their coverage. It's not very solid. But again, that doesn't matter that much against the Colts, who really haven't thrown the ball that much this year, certainly with their quarterback woes, their offensive passing blocking woes, and their lack of depth outside of Michael Pittman at receiver. So again, really good matchup for the Vikings here, I think, in terms of personnel, for them to take advantage of this Colts team. And for the Niners against the Seahawks, this is typical, if you watch these videos, typical red alert. This isn't a close spread on the road against a divisional opponent. And I should maybe be more concerned than I am, and maybe you should be too. But the way this Niners defense has been playing all season long, #1 defense in points per game this year, I don't see the Seahawks putting up too many points, especially if Kenneth Walker at running back is out. I don't know how the Seahawks are really going to move the ball against these guys because nobody has all season. And it is worth noting that third string, now starter, rookie quarterback Brock Purdy is questionable for Thursday Night Football. And that should concern you too, but it doesn't to me. And the reason why I think Brock Purdy winning against the Bucs and putting up 35 points is the reason that you shouldn't be worried. If a rookie quarterback, the last guy drafted in the NFL draft this past season, can go in and put up 35 points in this Bucs, anybody can. It is just proved that it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback for the 49ers. Their defense, their other offensive personnel, and their play calling is good enough where as long as you can take the ball from the center and hand the ball out to someone, they're going to win a lot of games and they're going to put up a lot of points doing it. So they went up against a top 5 scoring defense, and it's a top 5 overall defense in the Buccaneers, and Brock Purdy put up 35. They don't have to put up 35 to beat the Seahawks here. I'm not too worried about this game just because of how good that Niners defense is. So here's a quick review. If you got the Chiefs, probably the time to play them. I'd be impressed if you held on to them. This is the time, though, to pick the Packers if you still have them. But the games I'm proceeding with caution with, again, the Cowboys one scares me the most. And they could maybe be they blow them out by more than anyone here. The Saints and Falcons games, no matter who wins those, the Saints and Commanders game, no matter who wins on either side, it's going to be a close game. I can't say that about the Jaguars. I could see the Jaguars blowing them out. I could see the Cowboys blowing the Jaguars out. It's just a game that the spread doesn't make sense to me, so that's my real concern there. But again, I do think that the Saints, the Commanders are going to win these close games, just given their current situations. And I really like the Vikings this week. I really do. I think it's a great spot to pick them. If the Packers weren't such a value, the Vikings certainly would be the best value. And you might be concerned about the 49ers here, but I certainly am not for those reasons mentioned. So thank you guys for all the support and the love in the comment section. Keep that coming. It only gives me more energy. And best of luck again in Survivor Week 15. Only 4 weeks left. You guys got this.